welcome to this Caricature Masterclass. My name is Mark Berry, and I am a professional caricature artist. Let me start out by giving you a little bit of an artistic background about myself. So I've always loved to draw and create things. When I was a kid, I was always at the kitchen table drawing and putting things together and just creating whatever I could with whatever I had. In school, I was always that kid that was in class doodling and drawing. I really liked cartooning, and I would draw my teachers, I would draw classmates, and I would try to draw, funny cartoony style drawings of people, really to express myself, but also to get a reaction out of people. I really enjoyed seeing people's reactions to my artwork, and so caricaturing really fits in really well with that kind of idea. So I went to Olivet College in Michigan in the 90s, in the mid to late 90s, and I studied art, and I graduated in 99 with an art degree. I also went through the teaching program as well, and I've been teaching in Michigan's public schools ever since I graduated, so it's been over 20 years now of teaching for me, and I've taught a variety of ages and a variety of subjects, but I've mostly taught art and mostly at a middle school level, and that's what I do right now is I teach middle school art. And let's see, so in regard to caricaturing, it was 2012, so about 8 years ago, that I said to myself, I want to see if I can become a professional caricature artist. And so what I did is I started studying and practicing a lot. And I would study techniques, I would study other artists and their styles, and I would just practice. I drew everyone that I knew. I drew people from, magazines and TV and that sort of thing. And I really wanted to try to learn from the pros, right? I wanted to learn from the professionals and try to see what they did, but I also wanted to try to develop my own style as well. So after a little bit of time of studying and practicing, I decided to just put myself out there and see if I could really do it professionally as a caricaturist. So I put myself out there on the internet, and people started contacting me, and I had a pretty good first year in 2012 drawing at events and also doing some studio work, and it's been a good thing for me ever since then. And I've learned a lot, I've grown a lot, and I've had some really great experiences and met a lot of really cool people. So there are essentially two types of caricaturing things, two types of caricatures that I would draw, or two types of situations, you could say. So I'll draw at, number one, I'll draw at live events. So someone will hire me to draw caricatures at their wedding, for example. And they'll say, will you come to my wedding for 3 hours and draw caricatures of my guests? And I'll say, absolutely, and there's an hourly rate that I will charge for that, and that's always a lot of fun. I'll do other kinds of events. I'll do birthday parties, graduation parties, company picnics, holiday parties in December, senior all-night parties when the kids graduate, all kinds of events. And that's the main thing that I do. That's the number one thing that I really advertise myself for, is to do these live events. Number two, the second kind of thing that I do is I do studio pieces, and we'll take a look at some of my studio caricatures, and those would be ones where I'm at home and taking my time, and someone might hire me to do a commission project. Now when I do the live events, when I draw at an event, I try to go as quickly as I can, and my drawings take about 5 minutes per face. When I'm drawing at home, my studio pieces might take anywhere from 1 hour to multiple hours to work on one piece. So let's think about what is a caricature. Let's see if we can define caricature. So some people would say, well, a caricature is kind of like a funny portrait, and I would agree with that. Somebody might say a caricature is kind of like when they draw you as a cartoon, and I would agree with that as well. There are so many different styles of caricatures, and some are more cartoony than others, some are closer to portraits than others, My favorite definition of a caricature is it's a portrait with the volume turned up. So imagine you're listening to a song and you really want to hear it clearly and you want to hear all the parts of the song, so you turn the volume up louder so you can hear all of it. You can hear all of the noise and all of the sound and all of the music and really experience all of it. I like that definition of a caricature. It's a portrait with the volume turned up. So whatever it is that makes you, a good caricature will capture it and even make it look even more like you than you look like you. I know that sounds weird, but I've heard that a couple times when I've been drawing at events. Maybe 2 times now, I've had someone come and look over my shoulder and look at the caricature that I'm drawing, and then they look at their friend or the person that I'm drawing, and they say, wow, that looks more like you than you look like you. And that's when I know that I've really hit a home run with a caricature. So it's a portrait with the volume turned up. So let's think about caricaturing theory. So what are the ideas behind creating a caricature? Well, I'll just keep it really simple. There's 2 basic ideas. Number 1, the caricature should look like the person. It should be recognizable. That's very important. No matter how good of a drawing it is, if it's not recognizable, then the artist failed. So it needs to be recognizable. But number 2, it needs to have some exaggeration. And there are different levels of exaggeration that a caricature can have. It can have minor exaggeration, or it can have moderate exaggeration, or it can have extreme exaggeration. And some caricature artists, they work with minor exaggeration, and some work with extreme exaggeration, and some bounce back and forth. I think I tend to bounce around a little bit. I do try to push the exaggeration because I really do respect that being a very important part of staying true to the art of caricaturing, is that it needs to have a good degree of exaggeration. So I try to push it as much as I can, but I mean, I know of artists who push it so much farther than I do, and sometimes, incredibly, they still capture likeness. If you're interested, you can just, you can do a web search for caricature artists. You can watch videos on YouTube. They're all over the internet, and there's so much cool stuff to see if you look for different caricature artists. So, how to exaggerate? How do you exaggerate? So, you want to look for unique characteristics. That's kind of obvious, right? You want to look for something that really stands out about a person, and then you want to emphasize that thing. What you want to do is, when you look at the person, a way to tell if they have a unique characteristic is try to imagine, what does the average person look like? And I've heard it explained like this. If you could take all the faces in the world and throw them into a database and come up with one face that is the most average face in the world with nothing extreme about it, and I think of like a Barbie doll or Ken, right? Where they just have, average, beautiful looking faces, nothing extreme about their faces at all. If you could look at the person you're looking at and compare your person with that average face, how does the person vary or differ from that average face? And so some specific things you want to look at when you look at their face, look at their features, right? So eyes, nose, mouth, chin, cheeks, cheekbones, forehead, ears, neck, hair. Look at those things. And I'm just kind of focusing right on from the shoulders up, right? Look at those features and think, what do I notice about the size? Do I notice anything about the size of any of those features that's different from the average? Either bigger or smaller, right? It could be a bigger nose, it could be a smaller nose, or any other feature. Look at the angle of the features. So quite often an easy one to think about is for the eyes. Are the eyes totally horizontal, or do they slant down a little bit, or do they angle that way a little bit? And you can think about the way the nose is turned. And so any angle of any feature. Also the position of one feature in relation to another feature? Where is one feature in relation to another feature? You can think of it like, what's the distance between features? Sometimes you'll notice someone and that space right there, not mustache, but the space between the nose and the mouth is really small. And you say, their nose and their top lip are very close to each other. And then you'll notice other people and you'll say, that space between the nose and the mouth is pretty long, right? So things like that. What's the space between the eyes? Are the eyes closer to each other or a little further apart? So the space between features. So you're looking at the size and the angle and the distance between the features as you're looking for what to exaggerate. And so the idea is whatever you notice that's unique, exaggerate it. Turn the volume up. If you notice, I think their nose looks a little big to me, make it bigger. If you notice, I think their eyes look a little small to me, make their eyes smaller. Okay, that's the idea. So let's look at some fun caricatures that people have drawn of me. This was pre-beard, when I just had a clean-shaved face. That's when all these were done. Look at that. I really, really love that. It's not flattering, right? But I think it's hilarious. How about this one? It's not very flattering either, is it? But I really like this one a lot as well. Another pretty cool caricature of me. Now this was drawn by a kid at my church. I think he was maybe 12 when he drew that, so a pretty talented kid, and I thought he did a nice job on that. Now these were drawn live where I was at an event. These next three, this one and the next two, I was at an event or some kind of an event with some other artists, and we had a free minute before the event started, so I sat in their chair and they drew me and I drew them, that sort of thing. So when you look at all these, you notice all these different styles. Don't I look so cute? I look like a cute, adorable baby in that. And that's the style that this guy draws in. And he makes everyone look really cute and adorable like that. He's very talented. I probably don't look as cute or adorable in this one. Look a little more, I don't know, gruff and tough. And one last one right here. So it's cool to collect all those caricatures as the years go by and see all the different styles and interpretations. So let's look at some of my work here. Let me turn this camera down and let me flip it around. All right, so earlier this year I did a series of a bunch of NBA players. I really like the NBA, and we'll look at a few of them, not all of them. And let's see if we can get this just right. And let me play with the focus a little bit. Let me do this. I'll put it up here, push it out a little more, and see if I can lock that focus here. Good. All right. So if you know the NBA, you know who we're looking at here, LeBron James. So what did I do here? I squeezed the top of his head in a little more narrow, made the bottom part of his face a little wider. I definitely widened his nose quite a bit. I made his eyelids larger and heavier to kind of create that sleepy eyelid effect. I turned up the corner of his mouth a little more. Those are just some of the things that I did there. James Harden, if you know the NBA, you know his nickname is the Beard, and so you can see I emphasized the beard, right? And have that coming off the edge of the page. Again, he's kind of known for those sleepy eyes. Let's see, I noticed some details like the little cut in his eyebrow right there. Kind of an upturned nose. Right? If you look at it, you can see here, you can't see the nostrils, right? Because of the angle of the nose. Here, his nose is upturned a little more so you can see those nostrils. Some of the angles around the mouth I exaggerated with a little bit as well. Steph Curry, this one was a lot of fun to draw. I made his nose smaller, a lot smaller, and I made the lips bigger. And as you make the lips bigger and you make the nose smaller, there's this play back and forth between those features where the bigger lips makes the nose look smaller and the smaller nose make the lips look bigger. The gap between his two front teeth, I really wanted to emphasize that. You can see, there we go, I guess you can see that there. Let's see, what else? Let's look at another one. Here's the young fella, Zion Williamson, and you can see I exaggerated. Mostly what I was doing is just trying to make him look massive and super muscular and powerful. So I did that in the neck there. Look at the angle of the eyes. The eyes pretty slanted and angled. And the cool curvy shape of his top lip there. That was fun to play around with. Let's go to, not that one, there we go. Some drawings of some ladies here. So this was for a caricature contest. And let's see, do I need to play with the focus again? There we go. So I guess her name is Aquafina or something like that. I don't really know her. I think she's a rapper or some kind of a performer. So big cheeks, big smile, teeth. I was looking at those teeth, and those teeth to me looked like they were, when I looked here, kind of jutting out. And I don't know how well you can appreciate that. Kind of jutting forward, right? Not only the top, but the bottom teeth as well, kind of jutting forward. And so I kind of wanted to emphasize that. And again, smaller nose makes the bigger mouth look bigger. Small angled eyes there. And so this is Rachel Dratch. She's an actress. And you know, as I look at it, I think, wow, I went pretty far with that nose. Did I go too far? Did I go too far with the size and the angle and the droopiness of that nose? And you know what? I don't think I did. I don't think I went too far, but I did go pretty far with that. Her eyes, you can see I kind of pushed them close together and made them look bigger, a little more crazy there. That was a fun one. And somebody might recognize her, Billie Eilish. I played around with the color quite a bit with her. The bright color on the lips and the kind of the sunken eyes with the purple around the eyes and whatnot. She looks like she needs a little more sleep. Played around with the nose. You can see I kind of exaggerated the way the front of the nose is upturned a bit. And one more. Out of all these, this is probably the one that I spent the most time on. If you don't know who this is, ask your parents. This is Charlton Heston. He was an actor who has been in many, many movies. And this was from a movie called Ben-Hur. And so I really wanted to kind of exaggerate and play around with the shapes on the side, on the edge, the contour edge of his face there. Looking at the way the eyebrow and the cheekbone jutted out, made the nose, the tip of the nose come out in a pointy way. I was looking at this and thinking, what do I see? And there was something about around the mouth where I needed that mouth to be emphasized. And I needed that bottom lip. It looked like the bottom lip sticks out a little bit. So you can see I really emphasized that. And then, of course, what I did is I made the chin a lot smaller in comparison with this space right here between the nose and the mouth. So those are just some of my thoughts as I was going through this, and then of course adding all the color and trying to get the detail and that sort of thing. So those are some of my caricatures. So what you're going to see next is you're going to see me draw some sample caricatures of some of you guys. Some of you guys sent in some pictures, and so I drew some caricatures of some of those. And as I'm drawing, you can feel free to draw right along with me, or after the class is over, you can feel free to practice drawing some of your own caricatures. And the folks at the school would like you to send the pictures of your drawings to them because they would love to see what you do. So you can email your work to mhoppe@myprepschool.org. So that's MHOPPE@myprepschool.org. All right, on to the drawings. All right, here we have Judah. So what do I think about when I look at Judah? What do I see? What are my impressions? I see a lot of style, of course, and so that style, you know, the black turtleneck, the black glasses, the black fedora, even the curly, wavy black hair. I definitely need to capture that and make that all stand out. The smile, absolutely. The smile, the large, pronounced smile, the gap between his two front teeth. I'm definitely going to capture that. And the big dark eyes as well. So there's a lot to capture with Judah. If I look at more specific details, if I look at his smile, I notice his top lip is full. He has a full top lip, so I'll definitely want to capture that. His ear, I can't see both ears completely. I'm going to capture the size of the ear there, and as I look, I notice he has some dark, pronounced eyelashes that I'll make sure I capture. That'll help his eyes to stand out. And even his eyebrows, it might just be because of the angle of, you know, his pose, how he's turned to the side a little bit, but I can see one eyebrow is kind of arched up a little bit more than the other one. And again, it's probably just because of the way his face is turned a little bit, but I'll probably accentuate that as well. So let me start here with an outline for the face, and I kind of need to think about how much space do I want to give to the bottom half of the face versus the top half. I definitely want to leave a lot of room for the fedora on the top. I'll probably exaggerate that and make that a little bit larger. So I'm going to push the bottom part of the face down on the page some more. And I'll start, I usually like to kind of start and go from left to right. The bottom part of his face is pretty round. The chin has a little bit of a squared shape to it. So I'll start right about here, kind of come around. Now as I was coming over here, I thought I don't want to come over too far because I want to leave room for what over here. I want to make sure I can make his ear and give enough space for the big ear on the side right here. All right. So let's see, why don't I start filling in some of those details down here. Start to draw that top lip. Now when I look at his smile, I notice the top lip kind of has that kind of a curvy shape to it, so I'll exaggerate that a little bit. And let me come down and kind of outline the teeth. Now you notice that's two teeth there, and then I kind of added a third one over here because of the angle you can see more. And I drew the teeth together. So I didn't draw each tooth individually. I drew kind of the shape of both teeth together, and then I drew the shape of all three teeth together here. And then I'll fill in, if I do fill in the lines in between, I'll do that later with the thinner tool. And you can see I created that gap right there as well, and I'm going to fill that in with my marker. So I kind of created, you know, the one side and then the other side with the gap in between. And I'll kind of shape the bottom lip here. The bottom lip is pretty full as well. There we go. Alright, I'll finish shaping the top lip later. And let's put the nose right about there. It's upturned a little bit so you can see the nostrils a bit. Shape some of the cheek right here. And fill in some of those little areas there. Alright, so let's move up to the eyes here. So, let's see, nice and large. If I look at the angle of the eyes, they're pretty much horizontal, right? They're not, so if I look at this eye, it's not really tilted this way, it's not slanted that way either, pretty much horizontal. And I'm going to push the eyes closer to each other. Now, obviously in real life his eyes are not that close, but what I'm doing is as I'm enlarging the eyes, then the space between the eyes is shrinking a little bit as well. And you notice what I'm doing here is as I fill it in, fill in the dark space there, I'm leaving a couple of little light spots, and that would be like light reflection spaces, places where the light reflects off the eye. It gives a little more of a realistic, lifelike effect to the eye when you can do that. And this is what I often like to do with dark eyes. I'll have, you know, a bigger circle and then a smaller circle that I just leave white. Alright, and let's see, we talked about his eyelashes being dark, and so on the outside here, I'll fill those in and bring some eyelashes out this way. Kind of get that kind of thicker, darker, heavy space there, and then flick out the eyelashes a little bit. Alright, let me go ahead and draw some glasses here. I think I'll definitely exaggerate these glasses, make the size a little bit larger. Alright, so now let's come up and let's get the forehead, and let's see, I need to kind of come out this way. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, come out a little at a more of a dramatic angle than what I see here to make the forehead a little larger, and then that'll allow me to make the fedora larger as well, sitting on top there. Let me kind of draw some of the hair kind of flowing over this way, and then come down right about here for the fedora, and then draw some of that hair there as it comes and meets the side of the face. Alright, so right about here, I'm going to continue this line over, create a little bit of that bumpiness of the material there. Alright, and it's going to go right about there. I'm not going to go off the page. I could go off the page, that would be fine, but I'm not going to. I'll contain it all on the page. And let's draw the ear right about here. And have some of that hair, some of that wispy full hair come over the ear there. And fill in some of the details of the ear just a little bit, not too much. Alright. And have that fedora come down and touch the ear there. And while I'm at the hair, Let's fill that in here. Does this picture of Judah remind anyone of Jeff Goldblum, the actor? He wears those thick, heavy, black, dark-rimmed glasses and a little black hat. I don't think it's typically quite a fedora, but when I looked at this, that's what I thought of. I thought of Jeff Goldblum. All right, and let's get the arms of the glasses kind of coming back towards the ear, or where the ear would be. All right, and let's see, little turtleneck here, boom, boom, shoulder, a little bit of a collar, turtleneck here, shoulder, and finish off his hair down there. All right, now let's see, I think it is time for me to jump over to creating some thinner lines with my ultrafine Sharpie. When I look at his eyes, I can see eyelids above the eyes, but they don't stand out too much, so I'm not going to draw them with the thicker lines. His eyebrows, they're dark, but they're not super dark, so I don't think I want to fill in the eyebrows with my solid black Crayola. I'm just going to kind of outline the eyebrows, and then I'll fill them in later. And this right here, remember we talked about kind of exaggerating the arch on one side at least, so that's what I did there. And then I won't have this quite as exaggerated. And we talked about his top lip, so there we go, I kind of shaped that. Now let's take some of these lines where they end kind of abruptly, and let's kind of continue those lines a little bit more to kind of make them taper out, and you kind of get that thick to thin effect. And I'll just fill that in. I'm kind of looking around, looking at what else I want to do with this really thin Sharpie here. Probably add some little eyelashes down on the bottom, just a little bit. All right, and let me come back with just a regular ballpoint pen, and what I'll do is I'll fill in the eyebrows a little bit. I'll add some shading later to finish filling those in, but to get some of that texture, some of the hair texture in the eyebrows. For the hair, I do want to come back in and use this marker to create some of the texture for his hair, just to kind of get the direction of the flow and the waviness of the hair. And I'll finish filling some of that in with the ballpoint pen. And all right, so to finish some of the details for the teeth here, at least with the ballpoint pen, I talked about using some thinner lines to do that, and I think I have room, and I think I need to add a third tooth on that side as well, so there we go. All right, so now it's time to do some shading. So I'm going to put my piece of foam underneath. I'm going to take my art stick, and I'll start filling in the fedora at the top. And this is where I'm often going to be turning my paper quite a bit as I start to fill in some of the shading. Judah, thank you for sending in your photo. Thank you to everyone who sent in your photos. I don't have time to draw all of them, unfortunately. But I hope everyone's enjoying the class. Alright, let me go ahead and fill in some of the hair here. Got that dark hair. It's just about as dark as the fedora is. So you can see I'm not filling it in solid black, but pressing pretty hard and kind of making a medium or a dark gray here. One of the benefits, I guess, of using a marker for some areas, like filling in those eyes solid black, and then using an art stick for other areas, is you get a chance to create more contrast between, really, really solid black areas versus gray areas. And then, of course, there will be different kinds of grays. There will be dark and medium and light grays, and then white as well. I'll have obviously some white spaces that are left on the paper. And that contrast, quite often, the very first impression that is created is that contrast just looks cool. And then after that, then you can start to notice more details. But that contrast right at the beginning can look really, really neat. And I want to create some more contrast between the hair and the fedora. So I'm going to press harder here just to create more contrast right there and over here as well. Alright, let's fill in those eyebrows. Like I said, not solid black, but pretty dark. And what I'm doing right now is, I would say it's in between my live style and my studio style. So my live style is pretty close to what I'm doing here, where I'm at an event and I'm sketching the people at the event. What I'm doing here is pretty close to that. I am going slower, I'm taking more time. Typically those drawings will be about 5 minutes per face. And you can see I'm taking quite a bit more than that, but kind of slowing down and explaining things and, making sure that I'm taking my time here. When I do my studio work, I'll typically take even more time than this, and I'll pre-sketch, instead of just jumping right in with a marker, I'll pre-sketch with a pencil. And then make sure everything's really accurate, and then I'll go in with all the markers and the ink and everything like that. And I'll usually take a lot more time. So if I were to do a studio piece of Judah, I might take an hour or 2 hours to really fine-tune it. So right here I'm trying to move quicker than that for the class, and so I'm definitely not going to take an hour or 2 hours. It looks like I'm at about close to 20 minutes, which is actually longer than I thought I would end up taking on it. So I'll shoot to finish pretty close to 20 minutes. Might go over a little bit, but I'll try not to go over too much with Judah's drawing here. Alright, so filling in some of the shading on the face now. And I'm thinking, okay, so if the light source is coming from above, what are the areas where there would get the shadow? So the bottom of the nose is going to get some shadow, and underneath the nose there, maybe under the eyes a little bit. You saw me filling in the eyebrows a little bit, maybe a little bit there and there, maybe right under the fedora, right there. The lips definitely need to be shaded in. And then underneath the top lip, kind of create that shadow right there. and shade in the bottom lip. Now the bottom lip is going to need to have an area of reflection where the light reflects off the bottom lip. That's pretty typical. So what I'll do is I'll leave this area of the bottom lip lighter for the light to reflect off of. Then I'll fill in underneath the bottom lip a little bit with a shadow, come around the chin and the cheeks just a little bit, not too much. A little bit of shading in the ear there, darken the shading under the ear, where the hair is there, kind of create that shadow effect. I think I will add a little bit of shading in between the teeth as well. And then, let's see, maybe come around the cheeks just a little bit to kind of shape the cheeks there. And finally, fill in that turtleneck as well. And all right, there we go. I'm going to sign it. And there we have Judah. All right, here we've got Marissa. What do I notice about Marissa? I notice wide cheeks and a narrow chin when I look at the shape of the face. I notice a wide smile, no teeth, of course, there in that smile, but a pretty wide smile, full lips, pretty full nose, and I'm noticing eyes that are pretty large. They're not opened really big, but you can see the size of the eyes are pretty large and a little bit wide set as well. And then, the long, flowy, dark hair and kind of that big, swoop right there. So let's get right into it. Get the shape of the face there. Let's get that really wide smile there. She's got some really good smile lines here. Start to kind of bring those in a little bit. All right, also another thing I notice about her eyes, as I look at it a little more, I notice that her eyes do have a little bit of a slant, where instead of being kind of horizontal, this eye is going to be tilted a little bit this way, and what I can see of this eye, it'll be tilted a little bit more this way. Let me put the one eye, I'm going to start the inside of it right here, and it looks like I'm going to end up coming outside of that cheek line, which is going to be okay. Sometimes things happen like that, and it can add kind of an interesting little style to the caricature. Now her eyes she doesn't have them open really big, right? They're a little bit squinty because of her smile, which is good. And so I'm not going to make them, look like they're really big and open. I'll make them a little more squinty like that. This other eye, I'm going to start it right about here. I'm only going to draw about that much because of the big swoop of hair that's going to come down right about there. All right, now let's see here. How about if I move the side of her forehead over to the side of her eye, and I'm not going to make her forehead too large because I want to have room on the paper for a big swoop of hair like that. And shape her neck, kind of a long thin neck there, put a shadow right under the chin right there. And let's get some of her hair coming over this way a little bit. Alright, and let's fill in some of the details and some of that hair texture there to kind of get the flowiness. You can see when I'm drawing the hair, I like to start where there's already a line and then continue from that line. So for me personally, I wouldn't want to start right here. I would move up and I would start here. So same thing here. I'm not going to start here in the middle of the space. I'm going to start up here where there's already a line and kind of go from there. Alright, let's do a little eyelash action, kind of flick out some eyelashes here. I'll start a little bit of it here, but you can't see too much. I'll finish the eye right there. Yeah, the rest of the eye is hidden underneath the hair, of course. Alright, let's see. Let's go over to the thinner marker, the ultrafine Sharpie. Draw the eyelids, kind of finish shaping the inside and the outside of the eye here and here. Smile lines under the eye as well. Get those. Alright, let's see. I think I want for her, at least her bottom lip, I'm going to use the thicker line here. Kind of come over like that. And I think for the top lip, I am going to use this thinner line here. Kind of fill in a little more details here, not too much. I see a little bit of a dimple right there. And bring this line here up a little bit. Alright, let's see. How about eyebrows? Eyebrows are a little bit light, so I'll kind of create the shape of the eyebrows here, and then I'll fill those in later. Alright, and jump over to the ballpoint pen, fill in some texture and some details here. And let me come under here and get some of this hair under here to kind of give that kind of waviness. Fill that in a little bit. And let's jump over to some shading here. Remember, I'm using the foam, the craft foam, and I'm using the art stick made by Prismacolor here, just a black art stick here. I'm going to put the shadow of the hair onto the face there. And start filling in some of the hair. Now with really dark, kind of straight hair, like she has, you can often see that there's going to be a reflection of light off of the hair. So you'll notice I'm not going to fill in all the hair really dark. What usually works really well to create that reflection is kind of get it dark up at the top and then maybe fade it out, dark at the bottom, especially under the chin there and under the cheek. Nice dark shadow, and bring that up a little more and kind of fade that out as well. And maybe fill in some little lines, but mostly leave it lighter right there for a little bit of a reflection. And get it nice and dark underneath the chin and the cheek on this side as well. Again, for that kind of that cast shadow. I'm thinking if the light's coming from above, it's going to leave a shadow underneath the face here. Fill in the eyebrows just a little bit, not too much. Let me jump over to the lips here. Fill in this top lip a little bit. Bottom lip a little bit. And remember, I'm leaving that reflection. I'm leaving like a light spot on the bottom lip for a reflection there. Kind of fill in under that bottom lip a little bit. Kind of do some shading on the bottom of the nose and under the nose a little bit to kind of create that three-dimensional effect. Little shadows up on the sides of the nose coming up towards the eyes. Let's see, kind of shape the cheeks there with a little bit of shadow on both sides. A little bit on the chin and the bottom of the cheek there. Shadow on the smile lines under the eyes. Shadow on the eyelids themselves. Maybe a little bit of a shadow coming up onto the forehead there, not too much. Maybe a little bit of a shadow there. And every once in a while, I'll look at it and I'll say, I want to lighten up some of the shadows just a little bit. And that's the nice thing about the art stick. If you have one of these nice big pink erasers, is that you can erase some of it. You might not be able to get rid of all of it, but that's okay because I do like a shadow where I put it. Everywhere I put a shadow, I do want some shadow, but if I feel like the shadow is a little too dark, I can always kind of lighten it up a little bit. And what else? How about if I add a little bit of shading underneath the top eyelid on the eye itself, on both sides. Maybe a little more of a shadow under the top lip, kind of on the bottom lip there. There we go. Yeah, that helps to kind of shape the chin. Lighten up that part of the chin right there. And what do we think? All right, let me just sign that. And I think I've got space right here for signature. And there we go. It is Marissa. All right, here we've got Isaac. And what do I notice about Isaac? Well, I notice kind of an oval face and large, wide-spread eyes. I notice a larger nose, and it's turned up, and that'll be an important thing to capture. His eyebrows are a little bit slanted, kind of angling, down this way and this way slightly. Let's see, kind of a wider mouth and kind of full lips, a small chin, definitely a small chin, and probably a little larger space between the nose and the mouth. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Start out with the shape of the face here. Kind of a smaller chin. I'm going to start out with the nose here. Push the nose down a little bit. Kind of get that pointy kind of shape on the front of the nose right there. Now that's right there, that's a little technique that I like to use sometimes, kind of come from the nose and draw a line right down into that top lip there. And shape that top lip there a little bit. So Isaac's eyes are brown, and from what I can tell, they're not overly dark, maybe kind of a medium brown. And so what I'll do is I'll just kind of darken the pupil, and then the iris, the brown part, I'll fill that in later with some shading. Alright, and get up to the top of the head and the hair here. And just line up a little bit. And his hair kind of comes down and covers over his ears mostly. You can still see a little bit of an ear poking out, so I'll kind of draw some of it out there. Let's see what happens over here. All right. Let's go ahead and add some of that texture there. Fill in the hair a little bit. Alright, let's draw in those eyebrows a bit there. And just kind of outline the eyebrows, and I'll fill them in because they're not super dark, so I don't want to fill them in all the way with my black marker. It looks like Isaac's expression has changed a little bit in the drawing. In the photo, he just looks like a nice kid, just kind of a calm, peaceful expression. And by kind of making the eyes a little bigger and exaggerating the angle of the eyebrows, it gives him a little more of a mischievous kind of an expression, which I think is funny. I like to be able to exaggerate those expressions a little bit, add a little more character and personality to the caricature. All right, let's get into some shading here. Cap this up so it doesn't dry out. Do the same with that one. In the photo, you can see a reflection, a really good reflection off of the hair right about there, right? Can you see that? Yeah. So let's kind of capture that. So let's fill in a little bit above it and a lot below that point. And kind of fade out the shading when we get up to that reflection spot there. So a little word, if you're interested in trying out these art sticks for shading. A little word about these: you can find these on blick.com. You can find these on Amazon. You can buy a whole set, and they don't only have black ones. You know, they come in a variety of colors, and they're really fun to shade with. Again, like I mentioned, you want to use a piece of foam underneath it, though. That makes a big difference to make it smoother. And this is where I said I'm going to fill in the iris. And you can see I'm going for a little bit darker on the one side, and then there's that little light spot, right, for a little reflection right there. So kind of lighten it up as I go over to the side there. If you're wondering why is this eye a little bigger and this eye is a little smaller, the face is turned to the side a little bit, turned this way, and so this eye, you're kind of looking at it, you know, right from the front, and this eye from the side a little bit, so you're not seeing as much of this eye, which kind of, it works out okay for this eye to be smaller. Add some more shading under the eyelid. So this is where you want to think three-dimensionally. And you want to think, okay, if the light source is kind of coming from above, kind of coming down, where's the light going to be hitting? And then underneath where the light hits, you can create the shadows. So if the light's hitting, say, on the brow area, underneath the brow area, you can create a little shadow. If the light hits on the eyes, underneath the eyes, a little shadow there. The light's going to hit along the top of the nose right here, and so underneath that, along the bottom of the nose itself, you can create some shading. And then underneath the nose as well. Even down onto that space there between the nose and the mouth. Filling that top lip there a little bit. Shade in that bottom lip. Leave some of that reflection off part of it. Shade under the bottom lip as well. Shade in that space a little bit. Under the eyelid right there, a little bit there. And shade in the sweatshirt a little bit, just to add a little more value on there. sign that. And we have Isaac. Alright, let's talk about some of the tools that you can use when you're drawing caricatures. Now the first thing that I would say is that there are no rules for what you can or can't use for drawing a caricature. You can use whatever works for you. You can use whatever you have available. And as you're able to, get your hands on different things and try different tools and different materials, you can just continue to play around and experiment and find what works for you. I know some caricature artists that only use one type of marker, and other caricature artists that say, no, I only use this other type of marker. So feel free to play around and experiment and find what you like. Now, when I'm drawing live, I don't use a pencil. But if I'm doing studio work at home, then of course I'll use a pencil, pre-sketch, and just kind of take my time and draw things out the way that I like. If I'm drawing live, I'll jump right into the ink. So in regard to the ink, for quite a long time, I would use these Prismacolor Premier art markers. They're double-ended, and so you've got a chisel tip on one side, so you can get really thick, bold lines, or depending on how you hold it, you can get thinner lines. And then it's got a fine tip on the other side. And I found that Blick also makes some similar markers. They're not exactly the same. Once you get used to this, then this feels different. I don't know if you can tell, but even the color of the ink is a little bit different as well. But they're pretty comparable. They're pretty comparable to each other, and I think you could draw a fine caricature if you had one of these. Now, quite often I'll find caricature artists who say their favorite tip or nib would be the Crayola, just a regular fat Crayola marker, and these are really fun to draw with. And I've actually moved over to using these, and I've moved away from the Prismacolors myself personally. And so you can see you can get quite a wide variety of line weight. And so that would be how thick or how thin a line would be. And so with one of these, you can do a lot. Some people will say, well, I don't like the Crayola ink, the ink that's inside of it. I like this, but I don't like the ink. The ink does smear a little bit. If it takes a second to dry, and if it hasn't completely dried and you rub your hand over it, you might smear it. It's dried right now. Also, this ink is not waterproof. I've known some people who have bought a set of empty Crayola markers, and I did this myself as well, where you can buy an empty set, and it comes with some different colored ink that you can mix to create your own custom colors. But they'll take one of these and they'll fill it with Copic ink. So you can buy some black Copic ink, which is a really nice ink, and it is waterproof. And it takes some work, and it can be a little messy to fill it, but I have known some people that have done that. I've done that myself. I also like to use an ultra-fine Sharpie. You can get really, really fine, consistent, smooth lines. And then I do like to use just a regular ballpoint pen, something that you get at the store, a 10-pack for $1. And I use these usually for filling in things like filling in eyebrows, filling in hair texture, and also sometimes details in the teeth, maybe other little details if someone has freckles. Fill in some freckles. And then as far as shading is concerned, so I'm not going to be dealing with color right now. We're just talking about a black and white caricature. You can use a black colored pencil, and you can add anything from a solid black and change the value just by pressing lighter, and you can get into dark gray, medium gray, light gray, really light gray. And so you can create a wide variety of values when you shade. And then finally, so this is an art stick. This is what's left of an art stick. It used to be maybe about this long, maybe about this long, and it got broken in half and it got used and kind of smoothed down. And so these art sticks right here, now this is basically, it's colored pencil, and it's Prismacolor, which is a great brand, but it's just the colored pencil without wood, and you can't just use it and get very good results like that. You see how grainy and bumpy that is? If you want it to be smooth, what you need to do is you need to get a piece of craft foam. So any kind of craft foam, from any kind of arts and crafts store, or you might find other places, you might even go to the dollar store and find some craft foam, and watch the difference here. See how much smoother that is? So that is the secret to using the art sticks, is you need to use it on some foam. And same with any other colored pencil. If you press hard, you're going to get a darker value, and you can get medium, and you can get light. So those are some of the tools that I like to use for caricaturing. I want to thank you guys for joining me for this Caricature Masterclass. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking to you about caricaturing and showing you some of my work and drawing some of you as well. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the class. Remember, you can send your work to the school at mhoppe@myprepschool.org. So MHOPPE at myprepschool.org. You can email your work, either the work that you did today as you were watching the video, or in the future, anything that you draw, any caricaturing that you do, and they would love to see your work. If you're interested in seeing some more of my work, you can check me out either on Facebook or Instagram. It's Mark Toons Caricatures, MARKTOONS Caricatures. And get out there and get drawn. Enjoy.